We are like petrol stations. We are the pumps that needs to fill up these cars that come into our petrol station. We want to have a loyalty program with these cars. That's our children. We don't want them to go to another petrol station. They need to come to our petrol station. We need to fill them up. We need to make sure we've got fuel. So we need to have the wisdom, we need to have the communication with the values, the discipline, the boundaries, the food, the care, the love.
Our role would be to advise parents, because I think we act as somebody who would preferably be an advisor to the family. And we fulfill a role both of being somebody as a healer, but also being an advisor.
Loko n'wana o ti nyiketela ka mavhisi ya ku dzaha ni mavhisi ya ku nwa byala ni mavhisi ku tala ka wona ya ku hambana, a nga ha swi koti ku va a yamukela a dyondzo ya vutomi bya ku hanya pena.
A mfumo wa hina wa swi papa u nyikile a va kune jota heme va nyika liberdade a n'wana leswaku u nga mukawuki masikumu. Loko u mukawuka n'wana a ya mangala xikwadi mama thethisiwa.
Se hi ku kala hi nga swi koti ku va pfuna, loko se va kulile vanuna ra mindyangu van'wani va lava vukati na va nga se fikeliwa hi nkama. A ku sukela ndyangwini va hambi wo va na papayi u ka va nga vutomi li nga li khwatsi, se a va yingisi.
Neste momento, se calhar de algum tempo para cá, em Moçambique, se calhar não iria generalizar, mas na capital de Moçambique, que é Maputo, nós temos estado a constatar algumas mudanças naquilo que é a educação, naquilo que é o comportamento esperado das crianças. Porque nós, no tempo dos nossos pais, antigamente, temos a tal família alargada, onde até os vizinhos poderiam interferir na educação desta criança. Hoje, a criança já tem noção, já tem conhecimento de alguns dos seus direitos e não aceita que o seu tio interfira, em alguns momentos, interfira na sua educação. Não aceita, se calhar, que o seu pai, se o seu pai bate, sabe onde pode queixar. É verdade que isto ainda não está sendo divulgado, mas penso que esta questão que já estamos a começar a registrar, pode estar ou deve estar até a criar algum conflito, alguns problemas na questão da relação das duas gerações. Por quê? Porque o pai sabe, o pai aprendeu que para educar o seu filho tem que bater, mas o seu filho vai à escola e aprende que o pai não pode bater. o pai não tem o direito de bater ele como forma de educação, sabe que o seu professor não pode bater ele como forma de educar. Então penso que estas questões que estão sendo trazidas para este momento podem não estar a ser muito bem percebidas e se calhar a criar alguns conflitos nestas duas gerações.
Eu tenho uma filha de 2 anos, em que quando estamos a assistir novela ou no estudo, às vezes está com a empregada já contou-me que ela assim vê na novela beijar assim, e ela diz à empregada, Gia, beijou, fica atenta. Isso porque vê a novela. E às vezes ela vem para mim com uma maneira de dar beijinho, de abrir a boca e dar beijinho. Isso porque vê a novela.
Se por acaso não vai dar efeito. Sim, se você não coloca no ciclo, não vai dar efeito.
Você sabe que nós estamos em Moçambique, sempre tem aquele, ainda tem mito entre parentes, né? Tem mito. É difícil falar aquilo que não é anormal para uma criança. São poucas mães que sabem abordar sobre sexualidade para uma criança. Então temos sempre esse problema. Até quando vê aqui, às vezes até diz, estou a pedir, quero mandar meu filho. Até a pessoa que tem, mas não consegue falar, mas está a pedir para mandar filho dele para ter informação, porque não consegue abordar. Ele já que se os pais são eles já dizer, minha filha vai à vida, ou meu filho vai à vida. Então temos esse. É por isso que nós estamos aqui e devem ficar eles sozinhos e não querem ser vistos com...
For many years, the ideology was to say, okay, what is traditional is not good. What's modern is very good. Nowadays, we know that we have some values in traditional context and other values in modern context. The challenge is to get them, create a kind of dialogue so that we can find a way of helping better the future generations. Young people, they receive messages from, for example, school, they receive messages from traditional healers, they receive messages from religious authorities, they receive messages from medical doctors, they receive messages from television or internet, etc. All these messages are not the same. And their challenge is to choose which message is good. Yeah. And they are not always confident in their parents because things are moving so quickly that their parents, they are sometimes not update in let's say, moral attitudes, etc., etc. So the young people, they seem lost because of these contradictory messages, and those who are sending them, they don't meet to discuss these messages so that they can help young people to get the right way.
So I am a very cautious teacher because on the other hand I am a teacher and on the other hand I am a parent. So I like teaching because it is parenting. And again, I am a church member. I still do a lot of educating in my church, you see. Because as parents, we need to say this and that. We get grouped together in cells and we talk about parenting. Besides being teachers about parenting, because we all have problems and we all have the same, similar problems. And by coming together as parents, you always think that, oh yes, my workload is now better, because I was thinking this problem is, is mine only. So what I'm saying is,
what are the biggest challenges now in parenting, in your view?
Yeah, our children think they know better than us, because I must tell you, in the black communities, our children, our own children, have gone to the Model C schools, and they speak English. They speak English better than us. And they have been exposed to things that we were never exposed to.
It's like a virus, there's nothing we can do. We're gonna die. I think we made a mistake. I would say it's a mistake because of the apartheid, that we send our children to these schools because we wanted them to have a good education. It started then. Taking them to this school, they've learned something new. They've learned flexibility. They've learned to say what they feel. They've learned to challenge us. They've learned that a child is being born, not bought. In our culture, a child cannot chat back. Okay? A child cannot come up with his views. Children, they come up with their views, maybe they're angry, but that tone will tell you they're angry, but at the same time, they're uttering what they feel you are doing to them. Then to me, I feel like it's his right to say what he feels. And then when he comes down, we sit down and talk about it. We must reach an agreement. To my culture, that is not acceptable. If you say do something, a child is not allowed to say why. If a child says why, in my culture you say because I say so.
The ideal thing to do is for me to greet you, am I right? And then what are you supposed to do after that? Well done. I'm a youth facilitator. That's where my passion is. That's what it's always been. I think it's also where it will die. Don't think I will step over into adults. Reason why I'm so interested in working with young people is that the change in my life, if I had someone such as myself who could have worked with me at that time, most probably I would not have ended up where I ended up.
Where was that?
In prison.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent, as part of the gangs, I had to go to prison for 6 years, and in that time I had to make a decision. Is this the life that I want? A life of prison, the life which society wants us to be? Or are you going to make a change in your life? Because at the end of the day, there's no one really out there who's going to do it for you. So that's why I made my change. I decided I'm going to go out and I'm going to come and make a difference. The reason why I like working with young people is they're less complicated than adults. The minute you start working with adults, you started feeling like the kind of people who, for example, are not prepared to accept changes and to accept the way the world evolves. With young people, it becomes so much easier, and also they're in touch with what is going out there. Our reality, however, is that our young people are being ignored and our young people are not being taken serious. Because the perception out there is that a young person should be heard, or rather a young person should be seen and not heard. When in fact our young people are our leaders tomorrow. One of the things that I would always say is that we always say that they are our leaders of tomorrow, but what are we doing today? And today we're not doing anything except try to get them into school and keep them there, which is a good thing. But other than that, our young people have other needs as well.
What are they?
For example, if you look at the school system that we have currently, the young person, if he finishes matric, that person can't automatically step into the world of work. So there's different skills there that is lacking. For example, if you want to have that person become more employable. And that's, for example, one of the things that we need to look at. Other thing we have found is also a lack with our young people is that they keep trying to push our young people into things where they are not comfortable with. For example, the schooling system. It's not all of us who can do or we can go the academic route. There's some of us who would like to, for example, become entrepreneurs and rather spend time learning that trade than spending time in the school and become an academic. Just for example, say, some of the young people that I've worked with, they are talented in terms of music, singing, dancing, and what happens is because our school systems don't provide a space for them to perform out their talents, what happens is they fall out of the school system and they become just another statistic.
Teachers are not getting paid. They pay us nuts, you know. There's no money. And everything outside is expensive. I cannot get a house and a car. It's gone. My salary is gone. And they say they're subsidizing us. It's 400 rand. And the bond, I must pay 4,000 rand. So it's money and pressure that we get at school. I would say I'm fortunate. I'm in a school whereby the ratio is 1 to 25. As compared to teachers who are teaching a ratio of 1:50 in a classroom. And we're expecting that we do what we're supposed to do with no support, with no materials, with nothing.
You know, they were spending millions, mostly on administration, maintenance, maintaining the building, administration instead of paying staff, and for, you know, the paperwork, the papers and all that.
Yeah.
And very little of that was being spent on the actual intervention program for the kids. And that was, and it's still, it hasn't changed a lot.
What did you do about that?
Well, you know, all we can do is make representations to our departments, but you've got to do it. You know, there's a hierarchy. You give it to your supervisor and they've got to, and most times it's never gone past.
It's quite challenging to do this type of work. Firstly, you personally, it is an emotional roller coaster. You can never be too prepared for these challenges you face every day. You come into a house where you have to remove a child that is taking care of his mother that has TB and full blown and is HIV positive. And the child takes off a spoon and he wants to stab you and he's 4 years old. He's trying to defend himself. So emotionally, you know that it's wrong for a 4-year-old child to be able to want to defend himself. So you go through an emotional roller coaster on a daily basis. I feel for social workers there's not enough support. We do not get debriefing. There's simply no time for it. There's simply no time for consultation because you're always busy. So you never consult. Sometimes people don't reach out to help us. And we find that we are sometimes taking things too far and we sometimes get caught up in things too easily.
Involved
yeah.
with these problems.
And you're emotionally involved. If I can say me personally, it's very easily to burn out because you don't get enough hours in a day. Like today, you must bring a person to the treatment center, you go back, I haven't touched a single piece of my work for the day. So, which means I'm going to work tonight.
Who are the role players in a child's life? It's the parents, it's the educators, it's the social workers, it's the probation officers, it's the childcare workers. How are they seen at the moment? Unfortunately, because they see themselves as flat. Because they're tired. They're demotivated. They lost that flame that ignited them to become a caregiver. They lost it.
Ricardo, Manuel. Nossa, domingo. Shelton.
one of the challenges is just from general healthcare, from a child's perspective. I think what's probably happened as we've grown as a first world society in our area is that doctors have taken on more of a role as an advisor and more of a role as a watchkeeper in terms of what parents do with their children. And I think one of the primary reasons, it's no indictment of parents themselves, but parents are often busy in today's society. And what we find predominantly in our situation is that a lot of parents are both employed. So a lot of families have both parents employed or run businesses or whatever, and that leaves the children not unsupervised, but a little less involved in terms of having spent time with their parents as they've grown up. And what often happens is because parents are quite involved in running a business or being an employee or doing whatever they do, they tend to take a little less of an active role compared to before. People still view you as being somebody in a slightly more informed position from a health point of view. We train in that perspective. But they're also exposed to other sources of information, the internet. So a lot of the time you get challenged and you get questioned. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because our population tends to be slightly more, they have more access to information. They have access to the internet, they've got people they can talk to and other people they consult. So when they consult us, they often have had some kind of exposure to information already. So a lot of the time, and our consultations tend to be slightly longer, there's a lot of questioning involved, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because it gives you an opportunity to actually explain what your thoughts are and the reasoning behind your strategy is. There are some people who you can dictate to and say you need to do this, and they'll do it without any question. But it's actually better in the parents who question you, knowing that they've been informed and the decisions that they make will be an informed decision. And hopefully that gets translated into being more of an active decision in terms of looking after their children.
Eu tenho filhos de 13 e de 14 anos. Há vezes que a novela para mim ajuda, porque normalmente eles assistem e há vezes que eles vêm e comentam por cada capítulo que aconteceu, então cenas que passaram que vêm, que às vezes sabem criticar. Olha, mãe, achas que aquela cena que passou assim, que tem a ver com sexo, devia passar a esta hora? É uma maneira de conversar, que eu arranjo que é para conversar com os meus filhos. Eu digo a ele, olha, o que é que vocês assistiram? Comenta-se em relação a este assunto e depois mostro os pontos positivos e os pontos negativos daquela passagem. Então, há vezes que nós, os pais, não temos tempo, por exemplo, de falar de certas coisas com os nossos filhos, mas na novela, com certas passagens da novela, nós podemos falar sobre esse assunto.
I like to speak to parents and caregivers who say we are like petrol stations. I know it's not a very nice, beautiful thing to look at, but we are like petrol stations. We are the pumps that needs to fill up these cars that come into our petrol station. We want to have a loyalty program with these cars. That's our children. We don't want them to go to another petrol station. They need to come to our petrol station. We need to fill them up. We need to make sure we've got fuel. So we need to have the wisdom, we need to have the communication with the values, the discipline, the boundaries, the food, the care, the love. But unfortunately, because in your role as caregiver, you give, and so many times we end up going on empty. So when our children come to us, what do they see? They see this little note that says, no fuel. I see myself doing that. When my child comes to me, I go like, not now. I've had to deal with too many people today. Go speak to your dad. And what do I tell my son? No fuel. So what happens is our children end up going to the petrol station down the road. And the petrol station down the road fills them up with diesel. The wrong influence. And the wrong influence, unfortunately, is someone who says, hey man, how are you? In the Western Cape, our gangsters, how are you? I like you, man. Take a drag. And they find belonging at the petrol station that fills them up with diesel, the wrong influence. Next time when they need petrol, do you think they're going to come to the petrol station who's got a sign up that says no fuel? Not now. No, they're going to go to the petrol station that says, I like you.
Professionals, they are not in contact one with the other one. And this is very complicated in big cities or in rural areas, the same. Because there are different professionals, they don't have contact, and they can give different messages, contradictory messages to young people. So if it was possible to get them often in contact so that they can discuss which kind of, how can I say it, how they can conduct the life of the community, rural community or urban community, it would be very interesting for young people.
Também parte deles mesmos, porque se houvesse diálogo, percebes? Isso podia ser resolvido de uma maneira diferente, mas quando ele se impõe, quando eu também posso dizer que isso não faz mal nenhum desde o momento que eu saiba aplicar aquilo que eu estou a ver, é aí onde começa o conflito. Se houvesse diálogo, não teríamos nenhum problema.